Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Suzerain. So, let's see. This should have been all the stuff we already read at the end of the last part. So, the only thing we should have is a budget allocation hearing for healthcare. Okay, let's see. So I was having my afternoon tea in the State House office in Deer and going through newspapers. One of the headlines piqued my interest. It read, "Polio crisis in Wayland." Oh, that's exactly what I want to hear. Before I could start reading, I heard a couple of knocks. Pascal entered, followed by Lucien. "Mr. President, it's time for the scheduled healthcare meeting." "Good afternoon." Please take your seats. They have taken their seats and Pascal produced documents from his suitcase. He put them on the table. Pascal looked at the newspaper I was reading. "Very troubling news from Wayland, Mr. President. I have just returned from a meeting with our top scientists on the matter of polio. It seems to be spreading." Let's see. "Indeed, this might have dire consequences in the region." He nodded. "What I was told by our researchers was that with the current infection rate, there will soon be millions of people affected by polio. So we have notified all of our healthcare staff, especially the ones closer to the Wayland border. Unfortunately, these are also the more rural areas where we lack equipment and staff." Oh, I forgot to start my timer. "We need to be ready for any possibility." "I doubt it is that serious yet. Regardless, back to the topic, Mr. Benawal." Pascal put on his reading glasses and went through the documents. He didn't say anything for a whole minute. "Mr. Benawal?" Yes, of course. Let's start." He put the papers down, cleared his throat, and looked at me. "In general, the ministry is somewhat content with the budget decision that was made. At least we didn't get a cut. But I'm still happy with the administration continues to support healthcare at the same level as before, though this limits our options significantly. It's not a decision I made lightly. I'm sure, Mr. President, I'm not questioning that, but I don't see many ways out of this particular situation. We need funds to bring improvements. As you know, I have been preparing a new privatization program that would create funds through selling of unused ministry property and some extra taxes. It might not go against our strategy to promote a market economy, but I'm personally against privatization of government services. Such vital services must be under state control. Aside from creating additional funds, there is a long-term problem with privatization in a country like Sordland. You're right, there might be structural issues, especially due to private greed and market manipulation. Also, in a country where most people don't have access to quality healthcare, I do agree that there is some concern there, but the benefits of competitive and quality services is greater. This is not Arcasia nor Lispia. You're talking about Sordland, in which the healthcare is free for now. We have people who have their lives depending on a service that is free to them. Messing with the structure will definitely hurt us politically in the future, that I know for sure. But the choice is yours, Mr. President." I feel like there realistically should be a way to sort of have a bit of a middle ground. Admittedly, it would be tough in many ways to have that be effective, but again, I do think that generally you should be able to some capacity. Not sure as to the particulars. Although I do generally agree with Lucien. "We'll keep healthcare in state control. Don't allow any private involvement that could endanger core health services. As you wish, the health service shall remain in public hands." Good choice. Well, that wraps up our discussion for now. Very well. Fruitful meeting nevertheless. Nice and short. Just the way I like it. Pascal gathered his documents and left along with Lucien. see. Thousands protest the new governor of Helgeland. Oh, Agnolia installed a new governor. And obviously, the locals don't exactly like it. Or at the very least, the Volkslandian locals don't like it. And what do we have out here? Ah. The Wayland military initiates its assault on targets. Chief of the Armed Forces, Vulcan Kruger, reported that the Wesek Armed Forces are moving north towards the town of Vernon. On their way, many Bludish villages were assaulted, and the initial reports indicate a high death toll. As they are approaching closer to the border, Wesek army's movements will be observed closely. Many displaced refugees from the battles have been seen moving towards the Sordish border. That's expected. I don't honestly care too much to speak with friends of Richter, because we're not going to get along at all in the first place. So why should I care? Is sort of my mentality there. So this is going to be a short conversation, I imagine. The preparations for the new constitution were nearly complete. Soon we were going to propose it to the Grand National Assembly, a huge step for our administration. But we desperately needed more support. That's why I had invited Franz Richter for a chat about the upcoming vote. He and his party held the key to our success. Oh, never mind. I evidently am confusing Franz Richter. I was thinking of the dude from the, the NFP. Don't know how I got them mixed up. We met in the presidential office at the end of the day. He arrived in his signature navy blue suit and handed me a box of famous Arcasian chocolates before settling down on the couch. It's good to have you here, Mr. Richter. Likewise, it's nice to finally have some time to talk. He took a folder from his briefcase and flipped it open. I could see the scribbles he'd made in the margins of my draft proposal. I have to say, I am surprised by this proposal you've prepared for the new constitution. I really do not understand your reasoning behind some of the change. Really? What parts don't you understand? Don't get me wrong, I like your draft, as I've already stated. I'm just shocked you listened to our demands. Decreasing the electoral threshold and the term limits, that's more than we hoped for. How does the USP feel about that, Mr. President? Is this political suicide, or did you actually manage to get the party behind your changes? The USP is in agreement. It is up to you to support it now. Mr. Tory didn't seem to be extremely enthusiastic, Miss Tory didn't seem to be extremely enthusiastic about the new constitution. Are you sure you have all the votes needed? I believe that the Chief Justice has her ear, and the Old Guard is doing their best to make sure you fail. Are you aware the Old Guard has been reaching out, even to PFJP members? I hope you're doing something to contain this mess. My hands are tied. We just need to focus on the upcoming vote. I hope it works out, Mr. President. But even if the changes pass the Assembly, how are you going to win the Supreme Court over when your draft takes away the Justice's immunity? We have a few connections on the inside. I'm going to handle that. Oh? Is Miss Edmonds one of them? I don't believe we have ever been told that she is definitely a supporter of our proposal. I'm going to say that Miss Morgana assured me that she's a lock. I respect the Minister of Justice. If she's sure about this, I believe we might actually have a chance. I hope that you will succeed, Mr. Rain. I respect what you're doing inside the USP. I will do my best to flip the Supreme Court as well. You can count on the PFJP's votes. I just want your promise that you will give us proper credit and finally do something about the unbalanced representation of our party on state television. For decades, your party has been doing whatever it could to stay in power while keeping the PFJP silenced. If we're to be on the same side, I expect you to finally acknowledge all the wrongs that have been done and act against the soulless state apparatus in full force. can't deny my party's disreputable actions. I respect your honesty, Mr. President. I hope I can rely on you. In the upcoming vote, we expect the USP to rally behind your proposal. I can assure you you'll have the PFJP's full support. I'm happy to cooperate with you, Mr. Richter. Likewise, Mr. Rain. Was there anything else? Well, I mean, before you leave, if you don't mind clearing up a few things that I've heard about you. There are so many things said about me that I can't keep track of them anymore. What exactly do you mean? Do you have some sort of secret partnership with President White Walker? There are rumors about his influence on you. Because I've met with Walker before? I am the leader of Sordland's largest opposition party and free to visit anyone I please, but since you asked, I will explain the context of our relationship. As you know, the downfall of President Alfonso was abrupt. He was the only progressive hope we had in the USP. Our brief alliance with him accomplished great things, but we ran into a very concerning revelation. In our last meeting before the USP abandoned him, President Alfonso said that Sol was not gone and still pulled the strings behind his back. He was suspicious about a conspiracy against his reformist agenda, and he feared everything would collapse around him. And it did. Afterwards, the party voted you in. I don't think it was a coincidence, Mr. Rain. You think Sol and the Old Guard orchestrated all this? Yes, they knew that Alfonso's reforms would cripple their strength and remove them from power, so they removed him first. After realizing the true extent of the Solist Deep State's influence, He looked down for a second and continued. We are in this together, so I will be honest. I lost hope that Sordland could ever achieve the liberties and democracy that I'd been working so hard for as long as Solism was still alive and well, so I decided to act. I hope you didn't do anything to compromise our country. Of course not. I was contacted by an Arcasian senator and one of Arcasia's biggest tycoons, and I decided to agree to their meeting in hopes of receiving support. Continue. I flew to Arcasia, and I eventually met President Walker. He offered political and economic support for me and my party, asking us to lead Sordland into the democratic sphere and to become a member of the ATO. But the exploitative conditions he was demanding would have had crippling effects on our economy. I told him that I was only there to increase economic cooperation and nothing else. I did not get their support, nor did I do anything illegal. To this day, I feel ashamed to have gone to the feet of Arcasia like that, but at least I managed to stop myself from becoming the very thing I've been fighting against. I'm grateful that you're telling me all this. Thank you for taking it so well. You must always be honest with one another. You have the authority to investigate this and potentially prosecute me for it. I gave you my trust. I hope I have yours too. I will always acknowledge my wrongs and keep fighting for a better future. I believe we are not that different in this. You are correct. I hope to be together in this fight for a better future. As the revolutionaries once said, the morning will come, Mr. Rain. We'll see it one day. Anyway, if you ever want to discuss this topic further, feel free to call me. I don't have anything to hide. I'll get going now if you'll excuse me. Thanks for the meeting. It's nice to have a president that we can finally have a dialogue with. I'll see you in the history books. Have a nice evening for now. I'm not a fan of you telling me you'll see me in the history books. Let's see. Victory Day celebrations. Jen, the nationalist stronghold of Sordland, is gearing up for a massive celebration of Victory Day. According to the mayor, this year's festivities will be the biggest yet, with politicians from across the country, including the president, expected to attend. Victory Day, which commemorates the end of the Sordish Civil War, is celebrated throughout Sordland, but the largest and most extravagant celebrations always take place in the cities of Enrica and Jen. According to the mayor, this year even the Enricans will be in awe. The city, which has a long history of nationalism and militarism, uses the holiday to display its military might and patriotic fervor. This year's celebration promises to be no different, with parades, fireworks, and speeches planned throughout the day. As always, there are concerns about the potential for violence, especially given the current political climate, but officials are confident that security measures will be sufficient to ensure a safe and successful event. And then a just little thing talking about me and Richter meeting, and then Similar one as well here, but with the additional information that Richter is backing our reforms. What do we have here? At yesterday's party conference of the PFJP, Franz Richter announced that he will be giving his full support to the constitutional changes proposed by the USP. He asks the members of his party to follow him in this endeavor and set aside their differences for the greater good of the country. Okie dokie. And we have our choice here and just go further and further into debt. At this point, I don't think the decision really matters for which one we would want to pick. I could certainly be incorrect on that, but I do not believe it matters. I'm just trying to double check, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't really make a difference. It is purely a cost thing. All of them are going to cost us 2. I don't believe there's any differences regarding how long it will take for them to actually build any of the developments. So yeah, it doesn't really matter at all. I think we did Taurus before. I kind of liked them in many ways, if I'm completely honest. Yeah, I don't think there's any pros or cons, no matter who you pick realistically, so we'll just pick Taurus Holdings and continue on with our day. Let's see, okay, updates on the situation for education. After a meeting with the rector and a brief tour of the University of Ulgan, we gathered in a room with Ciara. The entire campus was visible from the windows as students were reading books, studying, and having picnics under the trees. It reminded me of my own times at Holsword State University, at least the more carefree moments. Reminiscing about the past? Yes, it had its ups and downs, but it was still fun. And now we're growing old and bitter. Let's not get sidetracked. I want to start off by saying this. It comes at a welcome surprise in Swordish politics to see a president uphold their promises regarding education. I'm making sure that the additional funds are being used in the best way possible in order to resolve structural issues. Speaking of, I want to thank you for allowing me to lead our education system in the right direction. By removing nationalist indoctrination and traditional teachings, we have unlocked the potential of the next generation. The students of now will thank us in the future, President Rain, for we have unlocked the potential of critical thought this society desperately needed. In this way, you have surpassed all the leaders before you. You played a huge part in this too, Ciara. I am optimistic about the path that lies ahead of us now. She nodded and brought out a stack of papers from her bag. Spinning her ballpoint pen, she went through the papers, organizing some of them together. Our ministry has prepared the necessary framework regarding how to spend our increased education budget. I have outlined 3 potential options. We can build new rural schools, improve the standards of existing ones, or increase the salaries of all education workers. We have the capacity to implement only one of these options. Tell me about the plan to build new rural schools. The issue is very critical, as we are losing many young people to ignorance and illiteracy. Sordland's rural population is full of untapped potential. With enough education, these people could be an asset to our workforce and society. Look at how United Cantana is pushing past Arcasia in education and research. It's because most of their rural populace has access to schools. Why should we increase the salaries of education workers? The job itself should be held in higher regard and be compensated accordingly. These are people who have chosen to dedicate themselves to the betterment of others, to helping raise the next generation. We ought to give them what they deserve. Okay, and what does improving rural schools entail? Where to start? At the very least, they need new equipment and materials. Many of these schools are facing a shortage of desks and textbooks. The ones that haven't been updated since before the Sol administration. If teachers lack the resources to give Swordish youth a proper education, it can be as bad as if they don't go to school at all. Oh, well, that's not exactly what we want to hear. I don't think we, I'm just checking out of curiosity, but I don't think we really have anything regarding this. Yeah, I'm not seeing any obvious choices in this regard. For exactly what these, what if any impact these actually have. I'm just not seeing anything for those. So I will generally agree, probably more schools is certainly a better idea. It sucks that we don't have the option to do multiple, considering that we increased the budget, because realistically speaking, we would probably want to both build more schools, but also update existing schools. From there, we could then consider, obviously increasing salaries. Although admittedly, building new schools without increasing salaries could potentially just result in schools that have very few teachers. So, yeah, realistically, I don't think any single one of these on its own is necessarily a great option. But we're going to go with building new schools. Build new rural schools. Our primary goal must be to increase access to education. It feels gratifying that we are finally serving the people directly. I will pass it down to the ministry. That's all there is for now. I have talked with Miss Suno to schedule some time to discuss the curriculum. She's a very astute woman, your secretary. You may want to consider promoting her. We'll meet again very soon. Thank you for your efforts. Ciara put the papers back in her bag and left the meeting room. Okay, that ended up being a green option, so that's actually kind of nice. I wasn't certain on that. Let's see. Overblown rights case appealed. Today, the politically motivated and controversial court case of Ishval Ursin has made its way to the Supreme Court. Uh-oh. We'll see how that goes. Let's see. New mega project, Benfi International Airport. That's great. Wayland refugees fleeing to the Swordish border. As Wayland President Victor Smolak continues his operations against the Bludish insurgents in his country, a wave of people, Wezek, Swordish, and Bludish, have been attempting to flee the conflict and cross the border into Sordland. According to the reports from the Alliance of Nations, the situation inside Wayland is becoming increasingly complex, with many different groups and factions entering and leaving the country. The AN report states that international reporters are no longer being allowed inside Wayland, and the information from the country has become incredibly difficult to obtain. It also explicitly warns the neighboring countries of an upcoming refugee crisis. It remains to be seen how the Rain administration will deal with the influx. Let's see. And that's just kind of repeating things. The number of Wizak Bloods displaced by the operation is at least 100,000. That's quite a few. Let's see. Ooh, okay, and this one is talking about press freedoms in United Cantana are dropping. The People's Daily Tribune, once hailed for its objective reporting, has experienced a 50% drop in its content distribution due to stringent censorship. You can pause if you want to read the rest of that. Something out here. CSP's Unity Conference in Galmland. Okay, I'm not gonna read that. Pivotal juncture, yada yada yada. Yeah, I don't think that really has anything too important for us. I do not know. Oh, here we go. Right here. Okay. I think it's pretty important for us to get the Gassum state shares divestment. Let's see how this goes. So, realistically, we probably want to sell all of them, more or less. I think we're going to go ahead and divest 2/3 of our shares. And I'm going to have to probably wait an event or two to figure out how much money we made from that. This is letting us know. Yeah, Ministry of Justice files Arson v. Sordland concurrence. See how that goes. Briefing on the current curriculum in schools. So Ciara had scheduled a short meeting with the Ministry of Education to discuss the current curriculum taught in schools. The ministry building was located in the government district right next to the Ministry of Health. It was tall, narrow, and wedge-shaped, like a slightly opened book. Near the front gate, there were many statues of world-renowned scientists and thinkers. The largest, of course, was of Artevin Insteven, the greatest scientist of all time. Above the main entrance was a familiar inscription. I'm not going to try to pronounce that because I would absolutely butcher it, but I guess it translates to education is the premise of progress in all societies and all families. Inside the building, I was greeted by Ciara's assistants. They led me to a meeting room where she was waiting inside. She stood and gripped my hand. "Good afternoon, Mr. President." "Good afternoon, Ciara." I will cut straight to the chase. Our progressive reform of the Sordland education system is well underway, but there is one sticking point. It involves evolution versus creationism. As it currently stands, schools across Sordland can decide whether to include evolution, creationism, or both in their curriculum. That seems silly. Rural schools often decide in favor of creationism only, which puts students at a disadvantage when it comes to entering university. The effect is especially noticeable among young women. My suggestion is to make the teaching of evolution mandatory and preferably ban creationism altogether. I don't agree with teaching our children supernatural nonsense like creationism. That's great to hear. It sounds like we're already aligned on the matter. Lucian knocked and entered. "Excuse me, some urgent business kept me away." "Welcome, Mr. Galade." "Mr. President, Miss Walda." We were just discussing the curriculum. Ciara had made some excellent points. "Very well, let's hear them. Continuing from my previous point, it is my conviction that we should require the mandatory teaching of evolution in Sordland's public schools and cut creationism completely out. If we want children from rural areas to have the same opportunities as their urban counterparts, this is the way. Opening students' minds and reducing the role of religion in schools will also lead to more equality between young men and women." "Miss Walda, don't bring your pet cause into this. Mr. President, there are other considerations you may not have thought about. Although I myself believe in evolution, we must be careful not to alienate our rural conservative voter base. We owe a lot to their support. Forcing their school districts to teach evolution could irreparably damage our standing with them. Every modern nation is reducing or removing creationism in their curriculum, yet we're supposed to allow schools to promote fundamental and, yes, sexist ideas from 1,000 years back. So is that what we are doing now? Copying what other nations are doing instead of paving our own way? If it works, why not? Look at the analysis. It is clear that the superpowers are doing something right. Should we reinvent the wheel, Mr. Galade? You speak as if we don't import any influences from other countries. That's not what I said. The voices started to get louder and louder. I held up my hands for silence. Let's see. In theory, I suppose we could go a route of still teaching both, but making the teaching of evolution mandatory. We could then potentially change that further down the road. This would be a slight change in curriculum, and then continue it at a later date. However, we're just going to say evolution is the way forward. Thank you. As I said, it's the only way to produce a new generation of thinkers. There are other methods of bringing Sordland forward, ones that don't sever our ties with an entire voter base. If they're a one-issue voter regarding evolution and creationism, they're fucking crazy. It is your decision. Don't forget, future generations of Swordish youth are counting on you. And yep, we're going to continue on with that. Excellent decision, Mr. Rain. As your chief strategist, my job is to advise you on the political landscape, and I can guarantee this won't do us well. Sometimes there are more important things, Mr. Galade, like ideals. They turned and looked at each other. Lucian lifted his eyebrow, and Ciara held his gaze for a couple of seconds. The meeting ended shortly after. The Loren region is beginning to stabilize its economy. Wonderful. England is starting to stabilize its economy. Wonderful. Bergia is, yes, still way down. Not a whole lot we can do for that. That is going to be a bit of a slow process. Head of Teachers Association of Sordland resigns. 8 out of 12 members have resigned in protest. Following suit, teachers and principals from various schools in Benfey have also left their jobs. Approximately 1,600 teacher positions are expected to be refilled in nearby regions. Economic report from Volgan. As the economy stagnates, Volgan is reporting a slight dip in employment rates as well as the shuttering of some local small businesses. However, some larger corporations remain unaffected, and several of the city's big agricultural concerns are reporting growth. The local statistics office will continue to oversee the mixed signals. The governor of Loren reports that the investment provided by the government has been put to use via various programs for new companies and technology fairs in Morna. The opportunity has led to an increase in overall entrepreneurship in the region and revitalized the economy of Loren, further increasing trade with nearby countries and regions. Wonderful. Let's see, what do we have here? Trade deal update. The effects of the trade deal with Agnolia is now in effect as per the signed agreement. In the short amount of time, steel trade in Sordland has seen an increase in flow, with especially the Anglin region benefiting the most from the results. The governor of Anglin has reported that this trade deal has helped increase the manufacturing input or output of the region immensely due to the combined effects of the H3 highway passing through the region. Wonderful, wonderful. Whaling operation, a mixed success. Let's see, he's drawing his operation against the Bludish Freedom Front to a close. The consensus is that while Wayland's army went a long way towards neutralizing the Bludish threat, there were many preventable casualties. Furthermore, despite Wayland's best efforts, not all hideouts have been eradicated, and anti-Smolak sentiment is at an all-time high among the remaining insurgents. Amidst growing tensions, the ATO is engaged in a delicate balancing act with Quinal, a key member showing signs of distancing itself from full membership. Okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes. What do we have here? Sara raises the blue dish question. Let's see. Okay, so we want to make, I guess, the teaching... Well, I guess we'll see more detail, but it sounds like making the teaching of Swordish mandatory, or... Oh no, yeah, making the use of education being done solely in Swordish. Okay. Dear prepares for Day of Dissension. Nationalize the Big Four now. Okay. Let's see. This should help silence critics of Sordland's education system. We have long argued that Cid and Seer have yet to catch up with their counterparts in Arcasia and United Cantana. And... let's see. Okay. Big win for science, and an ideological chess game in Rica. Deep dive into the workings of the, I'm not going to try to pronounce that plan, reveals more than just economic undertones. It is an intricate play to advance Malinevist ideologies in strategic battlegrounds. Sources have indicated that substantial funds from the plan are channeled to support Malinevist organizations and educational structures in Rica, a region poised between UC Malinevist model and Arcasian capitalism. Okay. I don't know where Rica is. I'm pretty sure that's not one of our regions, so I do not know where that is. I mean, it sounds like it's one of our regions, considering it was on an internal report. But none of our regions are called Rica, so I literally do not know where that is supposed to be. And I do not see a country out there with the name Rica, for what it's worth. Okay, so let's see. Kasara Kibnir, yeah, this is the dude from the NFP, is proposing a bill which aims to unify Swordish education by making Swordish the only language accepted in educational institutions, excluding specific foreign language studies. Okay, so we have the option of bribing the MPs to get them on our side. I think, generally speaking, that we have the support we need within the assembly. Excuse me. However, I do not think, I'm not certain if we'll have the support in the Supreme Court, but I do believe in the Assembly we have what we need, so we're not going to lobby the MPs. And we're going to hope that works out well for us. And I think we're going to end this part here because I have about 8 minutes left on my clock, and that's with me starting the timer late. And I do not believe we will have the time to complete this event. So we're going to end this part here. I will see you all next time. Until then, goodbye and farewell.